Hi, Alan Stratton from Utah Woodturning Symposium. Just before the pandemic hit, I made a trip to Phoenix area and picked up some wet olive wood, which I then turned and let this one dry. I have the drying history here on the inside. In the process, it developed a nice big check and crack on it. I did start to turn it so it's leveled off, but that crack is so big that I really need to do something about that, plus maybe some of these other checks over here. The olive wood is just too pretty to let go if I can, but fortunately at SWAT I learned a little bit more about ultraviolet cured resin. So it's resin that you can cure quickly with a little bit of a ultraviolet light from a flashlight. So I'm hoping that I can fill what I need to on this bowl with the ultraviolet resin, because I don't have to build a mold, build a dam, all the structure that would take for most other resins to do it. So here's trying, and then if that one works, I'll try and save this one, which is even worse shape. But pretty olive, I think it's worth a try.
I have several friends who carefully bandsaw bowl blanks, but I am not in that crowd. I prefer to rough out the wood with the chainsaw. This preserves my flexibility to adjust to what emerges from the wood. The worst thing is to find that I inadvertently bandsawed off a pretty section of the wood. For this bowl, since the wood is heavy and wet, I am using a steel faceplate and filling every hole with a screw into the wet wood. A couple of these are drywall screws, as you may see later. Then mount the wood to my lathe. By the way, keeping the live center in place is both a safety measure and a stabilizing measure. As I start rough turning this blank, it is slow going because the blank is irregular. This is the offset to the extra time at the bandsaw. But as the corners get cut off, I can increase the lathe speed and get more efficient with the bowl gouge cuts as I cut less and less air and more wood. As more wood is removed, nasty cracks appear. They look like drying checks from drying before I got the wood. Now for a tenon, nearly always my preferred method to reverse mount a bowl. I measure my chuck jaws for a good fit. However, I want to leave it slightly larger since it will shrink and distort while drying. Now to remove the screws holding the faceplate on. But one of the few drywall screws sheared off, and I have to dig it out with the chisel. What a pain! Now to reverse mount the bowl into the chuck. However, it is still a great plan to bring up the live center. With it in place, it provides additional pressure to keep the heavy bowl on the lathe. I hate it when a heavy bowl leaves the lathe as a UFO. It is worth working around it during the initial hollowing. Then when I back it away, the bowl is much lighter, at least relatively. I coated the wet bowl with a wet wood sealer and put it away to dry. Periodically, I weighed the wood and recorded the weight. Unfortunately, it also developed a nasty crack, which kind of discouraged me from finishing it. So it dried even longer and longer while I considered how to repair or salvage it. Fortunately, I learned more about UV resin at SWAT and decided to try it. I hope it will provide a repair that does not detract from the pretty olive wood. It did lose 22% of its original weight in the drying process. Now I have a small threaded wood faceplate on the spindle. I am pressing the dry warped wood against the faceplate with live center pressure. The live center is in the same original divot as when the wood was dry. This is sufficient while trimming back the tenon. It works well for me, which is the first task. My skew is a great option for my dovetail tenon. Dovetail jaws, in my opinion, work best for me. Then on to trimming back the warped wood to again make the bowl round. This again exposes those nasty checks and the big crack. Now for the repair. I used a rotary tool to clean out the cracks to solid wood. This is the first time I have used UV curable resin. My hope is that I can fill the cracks and not detract from the beautiful olive wood grain. For that reason, I am not going to color or add anything to the resin. Plus, as I said, this is my first time and I want to keep it simple. The process is repetitive. Squeeze some resin into a crack and shine a UV flashlight on it before it runs away. The resin is viscous, so this is not too difficult, except where the curve changes significantly. When the crack is fairly level, I can put quite a bit of resin into the crack. However, some got away before I could cure it. Out on the corner, I tried much smaller quantities, down to a single drip at a time. Finally, I tried some masking tape as a temporary dam until I could cure it. Not bad. After some seconds of light, the resin is hard but still feels slightly tacky. This could be my cheap Harbor Freight UV flashlight. I'm not sure it covers all UV wavelengths. Still, it worked. I took the bowl outside in direct sunlight, a great source of strong and diverse UV light. No, I did not use sunglasses, as I will never shine the UV directly into my eyes. We will see later if I need to add more resin to low spots. Well, direct sunlight did the final job. Let's see if it works. Now for the exterior bottom of the bowl. Since the surface is intermittent olive wood and resin, I decided to use a scraper. In this case, my skew, at the original negative rake scraper, perfect for a convex surface. At first, I am covered with white flakes like snow as the resin scraped off. Then, as the scraper encounters the olive wood, the flakes turn to tan. Dry olive wood is hard and oily. Fortunately, it is holding together and staying put on the lathe. Next, the concave interior. I'm starting with a freshly sharpened bowl gouge at the rim, then take a couple of cuts into the interior. This is slow going due to the hard, dense wood. After switching to a round nose scraper, I think I'm making faster progress. With the interior trimmed to close to final, I again use the resin on the cracks. This is the same process as before. Actually, I should have kept going a little longer to get even closer to the final wall thickness. I wound up cutting out most of the inside resin. Finally, I can trim out excess resin and cut down to final wall thickness. I'm doing most of this work with my round nose scraper. Finally, switch to my heavy bowl scraper for the final bottom section. For the outer, more vertical wall, I turn the scraper up on an angle for these final cuts. This works better for this section. After sanding thoroughly, I mount the bowl in the coal jaws to adjust the foot. Despite the hard wood and my previous experience cutting olive with my bowl gouge, I pick it up first. These cuts are in line with the turning axis to remove the tenon, then switch to a round nose scraper, and finally to the skew. Then sand. Finally, a soothing bath in walnut oil. I thought about olive oil, but that could go rancid, so walnut oil it is. I love this bowl. The olive grain is pretty. The clear resin is doing its job, not calling attention to the resin, but is there to smooth out the bowl and hold it together.
Well, it survived. Did not become a UFO. Cracks stayed together. The ultraviolet curable resin did its job. It's not calling attention to itself. It's just doing its job and holding everything together. Did manage to fill this very deep crack and some of these others from drying. It's not perfect, but it's a great bowl, and the grain is just absolutely splendid. But so, UV curable resin, got it off Amazon. Ultraviolet flashlight from Harbor Freight, low power, but finished it off with direct sunlight, which was absolutely free. So it will be a nice addition to my tricks and techniques for distressed wood turning.
Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, and tell your friends about my videos. I appreciate your comments and questions. Every week I add a new wood turning video to my website. Always, please wear your full face shield anytime the lathe is running. A face shield saved my life